Hi everybody, welcome to your very last video lesson, your very last lesson for this school year. Seems hard to believe that we've gone from teaching in the regular classroom to 8 weeks of online learning. Seems crazy to even think about, but this is your last video. This is the end of chapter 8. We normally only do the 3 sections, 8.4, 8.5, 8.6, and that's all we did this year. So you're going to have the quiz from the last set of notes. You'll have a quiz over just this one. And then your final, very last quiz for this class will cover 8.4, 8.5, and 8.6. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, but for today, we are looking at, if you have your flow chart in front of you, the bottom row all the way to the right, the LCD method, least common denominator method, which it's an interesting name. I kind of like to refer to this method more as the clear the fraction method, because that's what we're doing. Anytime we're solving, if we can clear the fractions and get rid of them entirely, it makes our job of solving a lot better. So kind of referring back to your flowchart, here are your steps. Step 1, you will factor your denominators. So we are back to just factoring the bottom. Okay, and then you're going to find your LCD. So hopefully you remember how to do that from the earlier sections. Then you will multiply the numerator by the LCD, not just the missing piece like we've done previously, but you are multiplying by the entire LCD to cancel the denominators. So after step 3, bye-bye fraction. Your fraction should no longer be there, okay? If you have fractions left, you did something wrong. All right, from there, then you will solve for x, just like we did in the last set of notes, and check for anything that was extraneous. So looking back at what your restrictions would have been. All right, so we have 6 problems we'll work through, and we'll kind of go from there. So first and foremost, I notice I have something that's not a fraction, so I'm going to go ahead and put that over 1, just to make sure I don't lose track of that. That 7 is a numerator, not a denominator. So step 1 is to factor denominators, and none of them factor, it's just x minus 2. So my LCD, your LCD is x minus 2. It's just that one piece, okay? So that's step 1. Step 2. Step 3, multiply numerators, so every numerator, by the LCD. Excuse me, sorry about that. So multiply the numerators by the LCD to cancel the denominators. So your fractions should go away. So now again, we're starting really basic, so hang with me. But what you're going to do, don't be lazy. I know normally I am all about lazy mathematician, but this time we want to make sure we're following every step of this, okay? So we are going to write the LCD, x minus 2, on the top of every numerator. Okay, it gets a little tedious when your common denominator is a lot longer than that, but just hang with me, I'll show you why. All right, the reason we do that then is to cancel the denominators. So this one cancels with this one. So that fraction, all we have left is 5x. Here, it's just a 1, so nothing cancels. So I'm going to actually have to multiply this, and we will have 7x minus 14. Oops, that was an equal sign. Look at that, I messed up already. There we go. That was an equal sign in there, right? It was right there. And then we have the plus, which I wrote down, and then this denominator cancels with this, and I have a 10 left over. So my fractions are gone. That problem looks a lot more doable. All right, if I just did that and you're like, what did she just do? You may want to rewind, watch that again, okay? Whatever that common denominator is, you write that on every single fraction, and then you are going to cancel denominators, and then you just multiply whatever's left over on the top, okay? So from here, then, fractions are gone. Step 4 is to solve for x. So I do have some light terms on that side. So we get 5x equals 7x minus 4. I'll subtract 7x. So we get negative 2x equals negative 4. So then x equals 2. Okay, so that's me solving for x. And then checking for extraneous. Don't forget this last step. Looking back at your denominators, you would have gotten x cannot be 2. But I got x equals 2 for an answer. No, which means this problem actually has no solution. Okay, no solution because the answer I got was in fact one of my restrictions. Let's try another one, shall we? All right, so step 1, factor denominators. There's nothing I need to factor, so that's done. Step 2, find my LCD. So again, every part and piece, notice these are not being super glued with a plus or minus. So my LCD is an x and a 2, and I already have the x, so 2x. No super glue of a plus or minus holding those together. I can cancel them piece by piece, okay? So step 3 is multiply the numerators. So that means every one of these gets a times 2x. All right, everybody with me? So whatever the LCD is, keeping in mind I need to just cancel every piece out. That's what I'm trying to do. So I multiply by 2x. Now, by doing that, I am getting things to cancel. So this x cancels with this x. And then I have 4 times 2 left over, which is 8. There's a plus sign. All right, then I'm going to cancel this 2 with this 2. And then I have 5 times x, which is 5x. Then there's an equal sign. This x cancels with this x, and I have negative 11 times 2, which is negative 22. Look how much nicer that problem looks, just by clearing those fractions. Okay, so from there, solve for x. So we get 5x, we'll just subtract this 8, equals negative 30. So x equals negative 6. All right, and then check for extraneous. So my restrictions down here would have been x cannot be 0. I got negative 6, so this answer is totally fine. So x equals negative 6. All right, so number 3. So factor denominators. 3x, 3x plus 6, none of those factor. Step 2, find my LCD. So my LCD, let's see, just again, I want every fraction, right? I need a 3x. I need a 3, which I already have, right? Right there. It's not super glued, so I can count that. It's just a piece. And I need an x plus 6. Now that x is being added to a 6. It's super glued, so I need the entire super glued piece of x plus 6. Okay? So when I go to multiply, I need to put a 3x and an x plus 6 on every fraction. 3x, x plus 6. 3x, x plus 6. I am aware it's obnoxious to write that, but I think it helps so much by canceling those off this way, okay? Because then we are supposed to cancel our denominators. So this 3x cancels with this 3x, and then I have 2 times x plus 6. So 2 times x plus 6, which will be 2x plus 12. Okay, and then there's a plus sign. And then if I look at the next part, this 3 cancels with this 3. And then I have 2 times x, which is 2x. And I have an x plus 6. So when I distribute those, I'm going to get 2x squared plus 12x. And then I have an equal sign. And this last part, I can cancel the x plus 6. And I have 8 times 3x. 8 times 3x is 24x. All right, my fractions are gone. But you have to be fair and do the LCD to every single part of your fraction. Okay, we got to be fair. All right, cleaning this up a little bit, what we got down here, let's see, we have a 2x squared. Then I have 2x plus 12x is 14x plus 12 equals 24x. To solve for x, I have an x squared, so I'm going to have to set it equal to 0. So 2x squared, if I subtract the 24x, it gives me negative 10x plus 12 equals 0. So now I can factor that. I'll take out a 2. X squared minus 5x plus 6. I can factor that further. That's going to factor to x minus 2 and x minus 3. So we get x equals 2 and 3. Right? Baby brother didn't give me anything because x does not mark the spot. So x equals 2 and 3. So if I go back up to the beginning, those denominators I originally had, right, they would have given me x cannot equal. That gives me 0. That doesn't give me anything because there's no x. And that one gives me negative 6. So I got 2 and 3. Both of these answers are fine. Neither one of them were my restrictions. So in this problem, I had 2 answers that worked. All right, so number 4. So step 1, factor denominators. So this one I can factor out an x. I get x minus 2. All right, so let's see, that was step 1, nothing else factors. My LCD is going to be an x and an x minus 2, right? I need x minus 2, I need an x minus 2. So those are the pieces I need. So that means on every fraction we write x minus 2, x minus 2, x minus 2. Okay, take the time. It definitely does help, I promise. All right, so we are multiplying because we want to cancel denominators. So the x and x minus 2 cancels with this x and x minus 2. So all I have left in this fraction is a 10. All right, and then there's a plus sign, right there. The next fraction, I can cancel off this x with this x. So I have 4 to be distributed to the x minus 2, which gives me 4x minus 8. And then there's an equals. And then I can cancel out these x minus 2's, and I'm left with 5x. And look how much more simple that looks. All right, from here, I have 10 minus 8, which is 2. I will subtract the 4x, which gives me x. So x equals 2. So step 5, check for extraneous. Let's see, we would have had x cannot be, this would give me a 0. This would give me 2, 0, that gives me a 2. So those are my restrictions. My answer, I have x equals 2. Nope, not allowed. So there is no solution. I don't know about you, but there's like nothing worse than going through all that effort and then you're like, really? There's no solution that works? It's a little disheartening. All right, so before we get started on this one, hopefully you remember back when we were doing adding and subtracting, the minus that you see, I'm going to go ahead and distribute that up here just so I don't lose it. Because what normally happens is we forget it sitting there. All right, so this problem, hopefully you notice, you have a 1 minus x. That is not written in standard form. So that's actually negative x plus 1. They have to be written in standard form. All right, so step 1, factor denominators. So this first one does not factor. The second one, I can take out a negative 1 to change that to x minus 1. And this one is a difference of squares, my favorite, x plus 1, x minus 1. All right, that is step 1. Step 2, my LCD. LCD is going to be, I need an x plus 1, I need a negative 1, and I need an x minus 1. X plus 1, I already wrote that down. X minus 1, I already wrote that down. All right, so that means every piece gets a negative 1, an x plus 1, and an x minus 1. Negative 1, x plus 1, and x minus 1. Negative 1, x plus 1, and x minus 1. Take the time to write it down. It definitely helps. All right. So again, the reason we are multiplying this is to cancel denominators. So the first fraction, look at every fraction separately. The x plus 1 cancels with the x plus 1. I have left a 2 times negative 1, which is negative 2, and I have an x minus 1 left over. So if I distribute, I get negative 2x plus 2. Right, if I distribute that. Okay? And then next we have, let's see, the negative 1's cancel. X minus 1 cancels. And I have negative x and x plus 1. So negative x and x plus 1. I would distribute and get negative x squared minus x. And then the last part, the x plus 1 cancels, the x minus 1, and I just have 2 times negative 1, so that's negative 2. All right, from there, we are at the solve for x part. So solving for x, oh, I lost my equal sign. Why didn't you guys tell me that? My equal sign was right there, which was right there. Sorry about that. Easy to do. All right, so the next thing we want to do is kind of clean this up. I have a negative x squared. Negative 2x minus x is negative 3x. And I got a plus 2 equals negative 2. All right, so from there, we are going to set it equal to 0 since I have an x squared. So I will add 2. Those do not cancel. Most people want to cancel those. So I get negative x squared minus 3x plus 4 equals 0. Those cancel. Factoring, I can take out a negative 1. So I get x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. Factoring further, we would get x plus 4 and x minus 1. So x equals negative 4 and positive 1. All right, that is us solving. And then checking for extraneous, go way back in the beginning. X cannot be, let's see, that denominator would give me negative 1. That denominator gives me a positive 1, negative 1, positive 1. So my answers that I got of negative 4 and 1, the 1 is no good. So just x equals negative 4. And we are done. That was a lot going on, huh? So again, the clearer you can write, the better. Sometimes my stylus doesn't want to write for me. More colors definitely helps. So just be very careful. Leave yourself lots of space when you're writing these problems down. We have one last problem. So last one. Again, recognize this is like over 1, so we don't lose the fact that that 4 is actually a numerator. So step 1, factor denominators. None of those factor. Step 2, my LCD. LCD, I need an x plus 4. A 1 is kind of already unspoken. And I need an x minus 1. All right, so that means we need to multiply then on step 3, multiply the numerators by the whole LCD to cancel denominators. All right, oops, didn't mean to erase that. So we need then to multiply. So I'm going to write that on top of all of them, x plus 4 and x minus 1, x plus 4 and x minus 1, x plus 4 and x minus 1. All right, so again, the whole reason we do that is to cancel our denominators. So one fraction at a time. First one, the x plus 4's cancel. I have 6x and x minus 1. and x minus 1. So that will become 6x squared minus 6x. And then I can see a plus sign. And then the next one, nothing cancels, right? All I have is a 1, which is not really necessary. So I have a 4, an x plus 4, and an x minus 1, right? I have all of these pieces left on top. So I need to multiply all these together. I'm going to start with the back two. So we get x squared minus x plus 4x minus 4. Like terms, x squared plus 3x minus 4. And then drop down that 4. So we have 4x squared plus 12x minus 16, because we have to distribute all of that. All right, and then the last part, the x minus 1's cancel. And I have 2x plus 2 and x plus 4. 2x plus 2 and x plus 4 left over that need to be multiplied. So we have 2x squared plus 8x plus 2x plus 8. In like terms, 2x squared plus 10x plus 8. So that's what goes down here. And that was after my equal sign. So 2x squared plus 10x plus 8. Sometimes these problems get a lot of pieces to them that need to be multiplied back together. If you've noticed as I kind of work through these, I kind of like do a little side note, right? Like, this is the pieces I have left. I'm going to multiply them. Okay, let's put them in the problem. Here's the pieces I have. Multiply them together. Put them back in the problem. Okay, so I kind of do my multiplying kind of off to the side or down below, kind of where I wrote it on here. All right, now we got a big hot mess going on. So let's clean this up. So 6x squared and 4x squared gives me 10x squared. Negative 6x plus 12x is a positive 6x. And we have a minus 16 equals 2x squared plus 10x plus 8. I have an x squared, which means I need to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract the 2x squared, which gives me 8x squared. Subtract the 10x, which gives me negative 4x. Subtract the 8, which gives me negative 24. All right, now it's set equal to 0. I can factor, so I can take a 4 out of all of that. So that leaves me with 2x squared minus x minus 6, which we will factor further. So let's see, last one's negative, so one's plus, one's minus. We're going to have 2x and 1x. And let's see, if we go 3 and 2, that would give me 3x minus 4x. Yeah, that worked out perfect. So then to solve, we get x equals negative 3/2 and a positive 2. Whew, this problem is in depth. All right, and then I just need to do last step, checking for extraneous. If you come back to the beginning, what those denominators were to start with, we would have x cannot be negative 4 or 1. I do not have either one of those, so my answers of negative 3/2 and 2 are perfectly fine. All right, I understand this is probably one of the hardest sections. I usually find out students either really like it or really hate it. It's kind of one way or the other. But this was our last lesson. If you have questions, I would go back, rewatch the video, try things on your own, see if you can kind of figure it out step by step. Definitely kind of space out your work and let me know if you have questions. Okay, this was the last video, last lesson. Makes me sad. Sad I didn't get to finish the school year with you guys. But so finish this, practice through the homework. take the quizzes, and then your final quizzes is all over Chapter 8. So it'll cover 8.4, 8.5, and 8.6. I posted a review and all of the answers so you can kind of go back through and definitely have that flow chart sitting next to you. All right, and read it. Nothing worse when students say they have questions. I come over to help them, and all I do is read the paper to them, okay? So read it, do what it says as the steps go. All right, and let me know if you need help, okay? And we will talk to you guys later.